Well, welcome back to my Algebra 2 students. This video, again, I'm going to try to keep it short. This is going to be like a little bit of pre-notes for 1.4 to kind of refresh your memory on inequalities and how to write the solution for a graph of an inequality, because you will need that when we do our next lesson. So I'm just going to call these pre-notes 1.4. All right, so I'm going to take a second and just draw some number lines. All right, so just put a couple of marks on here, and maybe I'll number it, I don't know, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, and then I'll do another one over here, and maybe this time I'll put some negative numbers on there. Okay? All right. So the first thing I want us to do is I'm going to draw the graph of an inequality. And I want us to try to remember how to write that inequality. All right. So, and I'm just doing it a little bit above the number line because, like, if you do it in pencil, sometimes you can't really see where you've drawn the arrow. So I always think it's best to put it a little bit above the line. Okay, so when I say inequality, I'm talking about things like less than, or less than or equal to, or greater than, and greater than or equal to. Okay, so make sure that you know that these two are the less than ones, and these two are the greater than ones. Okay? All right, so I'm going to write an inequality that goes with this graph. And when you do that, you need to use a variable. It doesn't have to be x, but it might be x. By the way, I am at home, so if you hear a little bit of background noise, just ignore it. And so x is technically the line, okay? X is wherever your line is. So my line is to the right of my point, okay? My closed filled in point here. So my x is greater than, all right, because it's to the right, it's bigger than my number 3, but because this point is filled in, I have to use the greater than or equal to symbol. Okay, over on the second one, because the line is going to the left, all right, remember the line is like your x and it's going to the left, I'm going to use a less than symbol, and because this circle is open over -2, I'm not going to put the or equal to bar underneath it. Okay? Now, that's one way to write the solution. Another way to do it that we're going to have to learn is called interval notation. Okay? And an interval is literally, and this is like a semicolon here, an interval is literally something that it almost looks like an ordered pair. It has a beginning and an end, and sometimes you use parentheses, and sometimes you use squared off brackets. Okay? Now, when you do an interval, you have to look at your graph from left to right. So for this first one here, the closed circle is the first thing I get to when I look at my number line from left to right. It's my first number that's graphed. So my interval is going to start at that number. And then I'm going to put a comma, and then I got to figure out where my graph ends. Well, because this graph goes to the right forever, it actually goes out to infinity. So we say our interval goes out to infinity. Now we have to decide if we're going to use parentheses or squared off brackets or some combination of the two. Okay? So we're going to use parentheses for open circles. All right? Here, I'll write it out. Open circles or infinities. Infinity. And we're going to use the squared off brackets for closed circles. All right, so when I come back over here to my interval notation, because there was a closed circle over 3, I'm going to use a squared off bracket on that one. And because the other end is an infinity, I have to use a parenthesis. Because squared off means we actually equal that number, and you can never equal infinity. Okay, and so that's why infinity always gets a parenthesis. All right, for the second one, again, you're looking at these from left to right. Well, the left of this graph is an arrow, all right? And it's pointing to the left, the negative numbers forever and ever. So it's really pointing to negative infinity. So that means this interval starts at negative infinity, and then we follow the graph to the right until we get to an open circle over -2. So we have to figure out how to finish this interval. Well, remember, infinities always get parentheses, and open circles get parentheses. So what I'm saying here is this inequality and this interval represent the same thing. Okay? All right, so I'm going to stop the video, and then just so that it's not too terribly long, and then I'm going to have to make another one for the next part.